Alright, before we start, I just want to say that I'm super duper sick today, so you might be hearing me coughing a couple times. I'll try to edit that out as much as I can because when I clear my throat or cough, that usually clips the audio. But that's also why I'll be sounding super congested and stuff, so if that's annoying to you, I'm really sorry. Anyway, where we last left off, we had finished making Pong, but there's more that we can add to it. So let's take a look. So this is what Pong looked like when last we had worked on it. It's kind of easy as it is right now, but what we can do now is we can start adding to it. Make it a better game, because right now it's all very, very basic. Now the first thing I want to do in our enhancements here is change the way that the ball interacts with the paddle. Now, the way that we have it programmed right now, the ball hits the paddle, and its vertical speed when it hits the paddle is all dependent on which part of the paddle it hits. Now, that's the way that the game Breakout works, and it's usually a pretty decent way to make it work, but what we're going to want to do is let's try to make it the way that the original Pong did it. Now, the original Pong did not have a positional direction for the ball bounce. Instead, what it had was momentum based ball bounce. And so what I mean by that is if you were to move your paddle really fast on the contact, then that would determine the speed and vertical speed of the ball. So if you're to hit it with crazy vertical precision, what the hell am I talking about? Again, I'm sorry, I'm sick, so I'm going to not make a whole lot of sense at first. If you're to hit the ball while moving really, really fast, then it would make the ball move really, really fast. And so you could strike the ball in really cool ways and win that way. So let's try to add that. So for this lesson, we're going to be using arrays. Now there's an easier way to do this, kind of, but I find that this is a better way to do it overall. So we're gonna have to learn a little bit about arrays. So let's just jump right into it. So what we're gonna do, let's demonstrate here in MS Paint, good old MS Paint. So we have our two paddles. So if it's just stationary, it will just bounce like normal. But if you're moving down super fast, all of a sudden it will zing super fast. Well, that's a terrible demonstration, but hopefully it makes sense. So the way that we're going to have to do this is we're going to set up an array, and in case you don't know what an array is, now we've very briefly discussed variables in the past, but so where a variable is kind of like ABC equals 0, and so draw ABC, it's going to just draw 0. That's how variables work in a nutshell. So the way that an array works is, let's say we have ABC and then 0 equal to A, ABC, 1 equal to Y, ABC, 2 equal to H. Then if you're to do draw ABC 0, draw ABC 1, draw ABC, I keep doing ABS for some reason, ABC 2, then what that would end up drawing is AYH, because ABC 0 is A. So an array, the best way to put it is an array is just a list. That's really the most simple way to put it. So let's go ahead and just jump right into it. Alright, so we're going to want to initiate an array for both the player and the enemy. So for the player, we are going to set what's a good variable name for this? Strike speed. This is going to have 2 steps to, or it's going to have 3 positions. So since 0 counts as 1 position, we're going to be looking at 2 to mean 3. That could be explained better, but hopefully you know what I mean. It's going to be 0, 1, and 2. So it's 3 positions of an array, 3 entries. So we're just going to set that equal to y. And you always want to set the highest number in an array as the as the first initialization, because that will tell the program how many positions there are in an array. So if the first time you set an array, you set it to 2, you can't start setting a position of 3 afterwards. This is the limit now. So let's go backwards and set strike speed 1, strike speed 0. And so what this is going to do is this is going to keep track of the Y position, the up and down position of the paddle in 3 different positions, or rather in 3 different points in time. Now you could just have it keep track of the previous Y position in comparison to the current Y position, but the reason why we're not doing that is because that would mean that the strike speed would have to be frame perfect. I feel that momentum makes more sense when you actually keep into account previous positions and not make it frame perfect. Because if you're just going frame perfect, then if you somehow manage to go really, really quickly for literally 1 frame, then that'll just give you a really strong strike. But if you slide up like crazy for like 3 frames in this instance, then you get the good strike. So let's do that, and let's also initialize that for the enemy. Oops, I want to do that in create. So I added the event of create on the enemy, which we didn't previously have. I'm going to execute a code here. Should always initialize variables in create. Okay, so object player and object enemy now have the same 2 arrays. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a script by right-clicking on this folder that says scripts. I'm going to create a script, and what this script is going to be called, this is going to be called strike velocity. And at the very top here, now just like when you're executing a code normally, and you put the three comment lines up top, instead of naming the script, what you can actually do is you put the name of the script that you wrote up here, and then you just put two parentheses, and what that will do is that will make it so that you can just type the name of the script with those two parentheses into any part of the code, and it will run this script. So it's a good shortcut. So what we're going to do is we are going to remember what our variable was called. First of all, oops, this is game control. Let's go back to player. Okay, so we have strike speed. Now what we're going to do first, let's comment this in, is we are going to adjust the array. And every time we adjust the array, we are going to set strike speed 2 equal to strike speed 1, strike speed 1 equal to strike speed 0, and strike speed 0 equal to y. So in case you don't realize what this is doing, this means that every step it's keeping track of the last 3 y positions, last 3 vertical positions. And what we can do with that is we can use that to determine good velocity or accurate velocity. I don't know. I don't know if you'd really call it accurate, but it'll be fun in the game, I promise. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to determine velocity. Now one thing that we didn't do is we didn't add an actual strike velocity variable. Let's do that on both the player and the enemy. Now since we have an underscore in the script, in the variable we are going to leave the underscore out so that the script does not confuse our new variable for this script. So now what we're going to do is we're going to set strike velocity equal to the absolute value of strike speed 2 minus strike speed 1. We're going to put all of that into an absolute value minus strike speed. No, we're not going to do it that way. Sorry, just a moment. We're going to add that to strike speed 1 minus strike speed 0. So what this is going to do is, now, like I've mentioned before, absolute value just means that you take whatever number it is and you make it a positive. So the absolute value of strike speed 2 minus strike speed 1, if they're the exact same value, which is to say if you haven't moved the paddle at all during those steps, you'll just get a 0. And same thing with strike speed 1 minus strike speed 0. These are all just positions of the paddle. So what this will do is this will determine how far away 2 and 1 were and add that to how far away 1 and 0 is. So you can build up some good velocity there. And so strike velocity is now our variable here, but it's also our function or our script. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy that strike velocity with the 2 parentheses there. And in step for player, here I'm going to just throw in a new execute code, and this is going to be called external scripts. I'm just going to paste it in there. And so like I mentioned, just having strike underscore velocity with the 2 parentheses will call up all of the code that's in here. And so you're wondering, why don't I just type the code in here? Well, the reason why is because this way I can just go to object enemy, go to step, and instead of copying the entire code, I just call the exact same script and it will know what that script was. Now the ball is going to have to interact with the player and the enemy differently now. Meaning we're going to have to comment out this direction thing. That's what gave us our ability to have the ball bounce off the bat determined by the position of the ball in relation to the position of the paddle. So we're going to comment that out, and what we're going to do is we're going to do v speed equal to, or I guess v speed equal to sine v speed. Now sine just means whether or not it's positive or negative times, and it always comes out as -1 or +1. So if you multiply anything by it, that's what you'll end up getting. Times, I think that I'm going to want to revise this in a moment, but let's just see how this turns out. We'll be taking an adventure together. Sine v speed times other dot strike velocity. Now let's just copy this over for coming in collision with object enemy. Okay. Now let's just see how that turns out. Whoa! Okay, so the first issue here is that another thing that sine does is it counts 0 as a sine. So we're going to want to not do that. To make this easier on ourselves, what we're going to do is let's edit the strike velocity. Now the problem is that right now we're getting the absolute value of strike speed, so on and so forth. So what we're going to do is we are going to find out the up and down movement of the player and the enemy. So in order for us to do that, we are going to do var, and what var does is var creates a variable that will disappear after this script is executed. So it's just a stand-in variable, and it's a good way to save memory, and also a good way to not crowd up how many variables you have running at once. So we're going to do var strike direction, sure, equal to sine. Okay, so let's strike speed 2 minus strike speed 1 minus strike speed 0. So this way, if they're moving down, then we should end up with a negative number. If they're moving up, we should end up with a positive number. Actually, no, let's take strike speed 2 out of this equation, because we only need strike speed 1 and strike speed 0 to determine this. We're going to want to figure out the sign of whatever this is. So strike velocity will be equal to strike direction times all of this. So hopefully what this will do is this will figure out what's going on here, times -1 the only way that the ball should go... Oh, another thing, let's take the sine v speed out of that, because that just creates too much possibility of the ball becoming stagnant. Okay, let's try this out. Whoa. Whoa. Okay, perhaps it's a bit too much. So the next thing to do would be that we should figure out a maximum and a minimum. So let's say the minimum for this would be 4. Let's just say that we always want for the ball to have some vertical movement to it. I know that that's not always the case. Some people want to have the maximum movement to it. So if you want to, some people would want to have the ball able to go stagnant. If that's the case, and by stagnant, when I say that, I mean that the ball just moves horizontally with no vertical movement. If that's the case, then all you do is get rid of this comma for parenthesis, get rid of this min parenthesis, and that should get rid of that. But then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do max parenthesis and comma. We don't want it to go any faster than let's say 16. 16 is really fast. It's 16 pixels per frame. That's like crazy fast. And let's just also say that if strike direction is equal to 0, and strike direction will be equal to 1. And that should also prevent the ball from stagnating. Actually, you know what? One other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make this strike speed 2 minus strike speed 0. And so that should give us, excuse me, that should give us some greater leeway here for oh goodness, I'm gonna have to make the enemy paddle smarter. Whoa. I know, I think may be happening. Let's go back to object ball. I have no idea what's going on then. Why on earth is this going so fast? Let's do this then. Let's make the minimum 1. Oh, you know what? I mixed up the maximum and minimum. Guys, I'm telling you, I'm like super sick right now, so I apologize. Okay, so far so good. Yeah, that worked out pretty well. That worked out crazy well. But it is going really fast, really easily. So I think that the next thing that I'm going to do is for this this whole thing right here, I'm going to divide that by 3, so that it takes 3 times as much power to strike it really hard. Oh goodness, look at that. Alright, yeah, I'm going to need to speed up that enemy paddle. That was a good one. I'm going to have to divide that by even more. Let's try dividing that by 8. So it takes 8 times as much velocity to really launch that. Well, I'm feeling much better about this. This is going much better now. Alright, something that I'm going to do really quickly is I think that I'm actually going to speed up the enemy. This normally wouldn't be part of the lesson. I say lesson, I think it was kind of a learning experience for both of us because I messed this up so many times. I blame being really sick. But I think it's kind of necessary at this point to speed up the enemy. So let's just go to the enemy's AI really quickly. You don't have to do this, but it's just that now that we have complete control over the speed of the ball, we're gonna have to up the odds in favor of the enemy now. Yeah, you see, he's still easy to beat, but now he's not pathetic. Now, another thing that I'd really like to add here as just a suggestion, I suppose, is that if you ever were to decide that you wanted to make an actual like app or just some sort of game out of this whole Pong situation, uh, making the enemy's speed dependent on a variable is a really good way to set difficulty settings, or even if you were to have something kind of like was it Puyo Puyo Pop, where you fight different different AI types at the same kind of simple game. That's one way you can do it, is just by making the enemy much faster. Of course, there are certain speeds at which the enemy could become unbeatable. I think that this makes it a lot better. This isn't too fast for an enemy. Obviously, I mean I'm still whooping him, but yeah, this is working out pretty well. You know, I think this is exactly what I wanted out of this. You know, it's really good. Now, more would have to be done with the enemy AI to get the enemy to start doing hardcore strikes himself. But I think I'm going to have to leave that to a different lesson for a different day. This really worked out how I wanted it to for this lesson, though I apologize for the mistakes that I made earlier on, in case those were confusing to you. I will copy the code that I implemented into the description, as well as the exported GMZ file so that you can check it out for yourself. If you end up using this tutorial or any of my programming to make anything, please feel free to send it to me so that I can feature it, feature your creation, or comment on it. I'd love to see what awesome stuff you make. So that's it for this video. Thanks for watching, and I hope that you learned.